Kris Brown. She is the president of Brady, and they put out a statement following the shooting spree in Georgia and calling for action to prevent gun violence. Good morning. How are you? And thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
If you wouldn't mind, please let our viewers know what Brady is.
Yes, thank you. Brady is a gun violence prevention organization, so named for Jim and Sarah Brady. Jim Brady served as President Ronald Reagan's press secretary. He was only in the job for a few months when he was shot and critically injured, but he and Sarah devoted the rest of their lives to the passage of our nation's background check system, the Brady background check system. And so that's one of many different areas we focus on. We want comprehensive solutions to end America's epidemic of gun violence that we bear witness to tragically, just like this shooting that happened, the shooting spree that happened in Atlanta every single day in this country. We lose more than 100 people in America every day to gun violence.
What is Brady's response to what happened in the Atlanta area?
Of course, you know, one that is deeply empathetic to all of the victims and their families. These individuals were going to work to earn a living, and they were the target of a shooting spree. These are 8 victims, 8 murders, who were all members of the Asian American Pacific Islander community, following a year of, frankly, racist rhetoric from a former president of the United States and others. So incidents like this, targeting groups of people, are on the rise in America, especially the AAPI community. And we want action. We want action from Congress. We want action from the White House to enact rules that, frankly, Americans, regardless of their political beliefs or their gender or their race, want to have. Bills like just passed the House of Representatives that are now pending in the United States Senate to expand and strengthen the Brady background check system and ensure that guns can't get in the hands of dangerous individuals.
I'm glad you brought that up, because we actually did have that House vote live here on NewsNOW from Fox, and we did cover it when it happened. We're hearing reports that the suspect here in the deadly Atlanta shootings is saying this wasn't emotionally motivated, but it's hard to ignore, right?
It is really hard to ignore. And I think, quite frankly, it's horrible to say, actions speak louder than words. He targeted Asian women throughout the metro Atlanta area. And sadly, Asian American women have borne the brunt of racist violence and harassment over the last year. They've also been the subject of racist and misogynistic sexual fetishization. In the US, just to give some perspective here, up to 61% of Asian women experience physical and/or sexual violence by an intimate partner during her lifetime. So we don't know the extent of the shooter's motive, but this kind of framing, which is happening sometimes in the coverage of this, just that he'd had a bad day, is deeply troubling and continues to serve as a vehicle for the shooter to escape culpability for murdering 8 people. So in the end, we want this individual brought to justice. The system needs to allow all of his motives to unfold, but there's no question that we have a rise in violence, hate-fueled violence across this country that needs to be dealt with and needs to be subject of enhanced penalties for individuals who target these kinds of vulnerable populations.
I do want to read one line in particular from your statement. It says, some of the worst mass shootings in our nation's history at Pulse nightclub, which was right here in Orlando, Florida, at a Walmart in El Paso, Texas, in a church in Charleston, South Carolina, were motivated by racist hate or bigotry. Guns and hate don't mix. What do we need to do?
That's right. We need to disarm hate, and that involves a variety of things that need to happen. But it's clear that we have problems right now with our background check system, the Brady background check system, which was enacted by Congress 27 years ago. So HR 8 and HR 1446, those are the bills that just passed the House, are critically important to ensure that we bolster the background check system and that we close the loophole that allows 1 in 5 guns to be sold with no background check at all. These bills will fix that. We also need to ensure that other holes in the system that allow, for example, individuals who are unmarried, but where one person is guilty of domestic violence, remove those guns. Right now, we have a boyfriend loophole. Under federal law, if an attacker is not married to the person generally he or she, is attacking, then they're not subject to penalties under law to remove those guns from them. There's all kinds of comprehensive measures that we need to put in place, including also enforcement, by the way. We need to ensure that the ATF, that's the organization that oversees all of the gun dealers in this country, is reasonably staffed and actually focuses on the handful of dealers. We have more gun dealers in this country than McDonald's and Starbucks combined. And about 5% of them are responsible for the vast majority of crime guns sold in this country. Let's focus our resources on them. So we need congressional action, we need enforcement, and we need to educate and really make sure that individuals who have guns in the home, now more than 390 million guns in this country, more guns than people, that they're safely stored. We have to end family fire, and that means storage of guns, unloaded, locked, ammunition loaded. Ammunition also locked. That's critically important. We can save many lives just through those comprehensive measures.
For those who say the system's fine, I don't want my rights violated, my First Amendment rights, I don't want to have less access to firearms, guns in particular, what would you say?
For anyone who is a law-abiding person, meaning they are not a convicted felon, they're not a convicted domestic abuser, nothing about the current regime would change in any way. They would still have just as much access to guns and purchasing of guns that they have today. What it would stop, for example, HR 8, what it would stop is someone going into a gun show who could not pass a background check, buying a gun from a private dealer and using that gun to harm someone else. If we don't pass HR 8, that's what's going to continue to happen. And ultimately, yes, the Brady background check system by every court that's looked at it has been upheld as entirely consistent with the Second Amendment. But right now in the US, we're putting our fellow citizens' lives at risk. What about the right to life, to liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? We can't have that if we don't have reasonable public safety in this country. Let's prioritize that, and in a manner that's entirely consistent with the Second Amendment. We don't have to choose. Let's choose public safety and the Second Amendment.
I do want to thank you for correcting me. I just said First Amendment, so correcting me with Second Amendment, I really appreciate that.
No problem.
Is there anything else that you would like to tell me about this or that I may have forgotten to ask?
No, just that we do still live in a democracy. And for those of you listening today, I can assure you, talking to members of the House and Senate, your calls make a big difference in terms of moving bills forward. So if you care about this, one way or the other, but if you care about this, please contact your senators. It's now HR 8 and HR 1446 are pending in the Senate, and ask them to move forward on those bills, those life-saving measures.
All right, the president of Brady, Kris Brown, joining us live this morning. And I'm sure anybody who is interested can look up the statement on the matter online. So thank you so much.
Take
another live look, everybody, at the White House in Washington, D.C. Most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break.